good Thursday morning. We did get some updates from DeMar Hamlin's condition and also a little bit of insight into what the NFL may do. But, of course, no major decisions have been made about how to proceed with this season. The New York Giants will be playing on Sunday. And then the big question there is, will they play their starters at all? It is a debate. 2007 is in the backs of the minds of many Giants fans and how that season ended, but that was a little bit different. We will talk about that as well. And the Knicks win. The Nets losing streak is snapped. Jerry's going to tell you all about that in about 25 minutes. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
I am doing great, G, and I think NFL fans are out there just clamoring for as much information as they can get from the DeMar Hamlin situation out in Cincinnati. As you said, he's getting better, but slowly. It's a very slow process, and we have to be able to, I would say, think about a number of things here going on, and what's going to happen, and what the commissioner is going to do here for the NFL, and how he is going to decide moving forward what they do with that Bengals-Bills game. My sense is that they're going to cancel that game. That they're just going to cancel it, and they're going to go back to winning percentages to determine the seeding, assuming that he has spoken to all the owners that are involved, all the teams that are involved, his entire staff that has been laying out all the different machinations and all the different things that could happen here if, in fact, that's the way they go. And if you remember back in 2020, they did put an amendment into the bylaws that made it an understanding that there could be teams that played less games than other teams. And if that would be the case because of the extreme extenuating circumstances of COVID, that the winning percentage then would decide how the seedings would be and who would win a division, that kind of thing. They took that amendment out, but it's still something that the commissioner has very, very broad powers in this regard to make these decisions. But I'm sure he is going through a number of different gyrations and scenarios, and he's not going to make a decision lightly. It's going to be thoughtful. It's going to be thought through, and it may end up being thought to be by some, not by me, because I understand this is extraordinary circumstances. This is uncharted waters, as we talked about, and they have to do what is in the best interest of the entire league. And most of the owners believe that. Yeah. So when you think about the owners, the Pagulas, the Brown family who own the Bengals, the Bisciotti, Steve Bisciotti, who owns the Ravens, and Clark Hunt, who owns the Kansas City Chiefs, they're all in. They're all in for the league. And whatever the league decides will be in the best interest of the league. It may not be in the best interest of their teams in terms of seeding or home field advantage, that kind of thing. Because, when I was on a team that had home field advantage, and it meant everything to us because we had a lot of injuries going into the playoffs that year, and we had to really get our collective acts together. We needed that week. And it's one of the things that you really fight for as a team. And that's why I think, to go back to your Giant point about the Eagles, I think Brian Daboll will be smart. He's not playing Saquon Barkley in this game.
Yeah, there would really be no reason to. It's not like Saquon Barkley's going to acquire some sort of level of rust by sitting out a game and getting healthy, where in wild card weekend he can't be himself. There's no way.
Right, and I maybe Daniel Jones starts the game, is out there, throws a couple passes, and comes off. They're not going to be calling running plays for him and things.
Sure.
And even though Tom Coughlin was in a completely different situation because the Patriots were undefeated.
Talking league history at that point.
They were talking league history, and, of course, it's Tom Coughlin.
Yeah.
And I think if Brian Daboll were in that situation, he would do what Tom Coughlin did. But in this situation, he's got to be very, very careful because he's going to need all of his players to go to Minnesota and beat the Vikings.
Right. It's not as if depth is the strength of the Giants in this particular time in their history, where you feel like back in 2007, 2011, maybe the roster was a little more complete. I mean, they're basically, you've seen some of the guys that they have brought in who are contributing. Isaiah Hodgins wasn't even a part of this team back in training camp, and now he's the number 2 option when it comes to Daniel Jones in the passing game, only behind Darius Slayton.
Right. So I think the commissioner is going to come out today. He'll give an update on the schedule. I'm sure he'll talk about DeMar Hamlin and everything else.
So you think that there's going to be a Roger Goodell press conference, you think, today?
I know the NFL talked a little bit yesterday.
Okay.
They put Troy Vincent out there, and I think his name was Larry Miller, one of the league executives. And I wouldn't be surprised. Roger Goodell has to be seen. He has to say something. It's got to be his face. It's his league. And, he guided this team or this league through the 2020 COVID pandemic. And you remember they were moving games around, and they had to move games around. Had an outbreak with this team, had an outbreak with that team, and really nobody knew what the extenuating circumstances were in the middle of all of that. So he guided them through the league year. And even though fans were not allowed to come to those games, and we did the Super Bowl down in Tampa, I think there were about 25,000 fans at that game, all separated.
Yeah.
He guided it through, and I think most, if not all, the ownership groups appreciated the steadfast leadership that he gave them in that case. So you can say whatever you want about Roger Goodell, he got him through. So now he's confronted with yet another circumstance that is completely unprecedented, and he'll make a decision. And I think they'll cancel the Bills game. I can't imagine the Bills getting on a plane going back to Cincinnati. I just can't imagine the Bills playing a game at Paycor Stadium after what just went happen. Because that's part of it in kind of getting the players back into the mode and into the rhythm and into a routine of getting ready to play a game. And who knows what they're going to – I would think that on Sunday when they play the Patriots, the game will stop. There'll be a prayer before the game. They'll probably raise a flag with DeMar's number on it, letting everybody know that they're all thinking and praying about him, and they're all there for him. Everybody's written checks to his charity. Everybody is doing everything they possibly can. So we all need to multitask. We all need to have some normalcy in our lives. And I do believe that the most normal thing in my eyes would be that they would cancel that game and that they would go back to win percentage. Now, if Kansas City wins on Sunday, that's when it becomes the issue.
Well, I mean, it's going to become the issue no matter what happens because there were two teams involved that are going to be affected by this regardless of the outcome of the game.
Did you hear Zach Taylor speak yesterday?
I did not hear Zach
All right,
Taylor.
so Zach Taylor was amazing in his press conference, and he talked about his conversations with Sean McDermott on the field. Mm-hmm. And we all thought, looking at it from where we were sitting, and most of the guys that I talked to all felt like it was Zach and Sean that were talking that ultimately, I think, canceled the game. Because Sean McDermott said to Zach Taylor, according to Zach Taylor, that, look, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, I shouldn't be coaching this game. I should be with DeMar at the hospital and his family. That's where I should be.
Yeah.
And that's when I think they realized that, this is bigger than the game and that, we're taking our teams off the field. And then the phones calls started, and there's a lot of things that go on, especially when the commissioner is in one spot, Troy Vincent is in one spot, DeMaurice Smith is in one spot. You got coaches, you got owners, you got 70,000 fans at a game. So they have to go through all of the different levels of communication to get to where they ultimately got to and postpone the game at that moment. But I think they're going to cancel it, and I think that's the smart thing to do. And then they'll talk to all the ownership groups that are going to be affected. And Cincinnati could have gotten to the number one seed if they would have won on Monday night, beat Baltimore, and Kansas City lose at Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's why I said that both of these teams were affected by, regardless of what happens in Week 18. So you're just going to have to deal with that. And I don't think anybody's going to come out and be like, man, this really screwed us this season. I don't think anybody's going to say that.
There'll be a faction of fandoms.
Well, fans, yeah, but I'm talking about people that like in the, the owners and the players and the coaches. Like, no one's going to say that.
You just want practical. You want to think what's best for everybody, and you want to try to do it as fairly as you possibly can. And like I said, the commissioner has broad powers. He can make this decision, but he doesn't make it lightly. He knows he has to talk to the Hunt family. He's got to talk to the Brown family, the Pagula family, the Bisciotti family. He's got to talk to all of these families that are owners of these teams. And I look, Mike Brown's been around a long time. His dad was Paul Brown. I know for a fact, for playing for him for 10 years, that he will do what's ever in the best interest of the league. It's not his team comes first, of course, but they'll do what's ever in the best interest of the league. And by the way, Zach Taylor did say yesterday, he goes, look, we're behind the Buffalo Bills 100%. Whatever they need, whatever has to happen, you got to remember, football coaches are conditioned to talk to their athletes through adversity, both this kind of adversity that they're both dealing with, that we're all dealing with, and two, the adversity of maybe being in the middle of a 3-game losing streak or losing your starting quarterback and getting Cooper Rush back on the field for the Dallas Cowboys and saying, we got to support our backup quarterback, or like what Nick Sirianni's dealing with Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles right now. So there's all sorts of adversity that kind of shows up all throughout the season that these coaches are conditioned to handle and stand in front of their team and say, look, man, we don't make any excuses. And how many times has Rob Saleh said in his press conference, I'm not making an excuse. He'll start out by saying that.
Yeah, I mean, every head coach says the same thing, when they bring up injuries or whatever. Although Joe Judge did make a bunch of excuses when he ended up talking himself out of the job at the end of last year. But I did find it interesting that Troy Vincent yesterday, when talking about all the scenarios, didn't rule out the fact that the Bills-Patriots game on Week 18, might be postponed. He didn't rule that out because he basically was saying we have to take the guide from Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills. So you were talking about what the Bills want and then the Bengals and what Zach Taylor said. Troy Vincent, we have to make that decision collectively with the club. So if the Buffalo Bills feel like they can't play on Sunday and don't want to play on Sunday, and they go to the NFL and Roger Goodell and tell them that, then what?
You know what? I just, again, you can't speak for every individual involved, every player involved. Somebody asked me yesterday, if a teammate of yours who happened to be a really close friend of DeMar Hamlin couldn't play because of what he saw, what he witnessed, what he's dealing with, would you understand that? And I said, of course I would. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would like to have all hands on deck, and I would like to think that the Buffalo Bills, I'm assuming they are playing, but once the Buffalo Bills step on that field and that fan base welcomes them onto that field, you know what that's going to feel like?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
And I would try to tell the players, look, your fans want you. Yeah, they want you to play the game, but they want you here because they want to show you how much love they have for your team and the way that you've acted and the way that you've carried yourselves and the things that you've asked for that they've delivered as fans. They want you out there on Sunday. Yeah, of course they want you to win and they want you to go on to win a Super Bowl. And then I was thinking to myself, the best case scenario for all of this would be for the Buffalo Bills to go on and win a Super Bowl, DeMar Hamlin walk out of that hospital, and they put that Super Bowl ring on his finger after winning it. That would be an amazing.
Well, yeah, hand them the Lombardi. I mean, the rings wouldn't be ready at that point.
Yeah, well, hand them the Lombardi.
Hand them the Lombardi trophy, or
our hopes and prayers are that he is going to get up and walk out of that hospital whenever he's able to do that. That's what everybody's hoping for, what everybody wants. And then for his team to go out there, I can't, just from a football standpoint, the whole motivating factor. We had our right tackle, Joe Walter, got hurt in our last regular season game, the year that we went to the Super Bowl, and I wrote the number 63 on the side of his helmet. We had Tim Crumry break his leg in the middle of our Super Bowl game, and he's sitting in the locker room with a broken leg.
Yeah.
And he said he's not leaving the stadium until the game's over, and he broke his leg in the first quarter. It goes to show you how much this means to all the men that are playing. So I would like to think that kind of mindset is going to set in for these players, hopefully all of the players, and they'll be able to be a part of what I think is going to be an incredibly emotional and really, really powerful moment on Sunday up there in up there in whatever that stadium's called. I can't remember what that stadium's called.
Yeah, I think you've told me in the past, too, that even though you've seen some crazy stuff on the field and teammates get hurt, and this is obviously a lot different with DeMar Hamlin and the CPR and everything else, but once you get out there and start playing, you're out there and you're playing because you've done this your entire life, and you can't think that much while you're out there because that's going to be a detriment to you. So even though the Bills players right now are probably like, man, I don't know if I could do this, if they had to do it and they went out there and they played, I'm sure that they would just play. Their instincts would kick in and they'd be themselves.
Well, hopefully they get their minds right. They're getting ready to play New England, and they put forth the effort that is required to play at a high level and play for DeMar, and I would assume, again, if it were me, I would want my teammates to play. I'd want them out there playing. I want them to live their dream and to go for the goal that we all set at the beginning of the year, and that was to get back to the Super Bowl. They lost the game in Kansas City last year in the AFC in the divisional round, which was one of the most amazing games in the history of the NFL. And unfortunately, Josh Allen never got the ball back in overtime because Kansas City scored their touchdown. The rules have been changed because of that game. So when the playoffs start, if a team scores a touchdown, the other team is going to have a right to go and score a touchdown themselves to tie the game. So the quarterback doesn't sit on the sideline like both Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen did in previous playoff runs. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. And, I just think we can talk about all of this and we can still even think about DeMar at the same time. We can multitask here. And I think that's what the NFL is trying to figure out. And they're trying to thread the needle. And somebody is going to be have to make sacrifices. Probably 2 or 3 teams are going to have to make sacrifices, and this thing may end up going in the AFC right through Kansas City again.
All right, Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. Just getting started on this Thursday morning. We'll have Jerry Recco in here in just a couple of minutes.